of the Hardwood. We had a star-studded list of guests this week, and tonight that will continue. We will be joined by tonight Eastern High School graduate and current Loyola University of Chicago standout Allison Day. This week, we have touched on everything from Title IX to equality in sports, to things that can be done to elevate the popularity of women's athletics. In episode 32, again, this is brought to you by Anchor.fm and Mount Orb Sports Complex. All syndications of this podcast are available on Anchor.fm, Breaker Radio, Castbox, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify. Without further ado, tonight, let's kick off the show. We will be joined tonight by a young lady who has been nothing short of marvelous as a student athlete, and not just her ability to play the game, but to understand the game, to be a good teammate, to be a good role model, and to be very coachable. Those assets have been what has landed her an opportunity to play Division I college basketball at Loyola University of Chicago. This young lady was second team All-State, selected by Associated Press under Coach Kevin Pickrell at Eastern High School. She led the Warriors to a regional title and a berth in the Ohio High School Athletic Association Final Four. She was named SHAC Player of the Year during her junior year. She averaged a double-double with 12.7 points per game, 10.4 rebounds during her high school career. At the club level, she played for the Cincinnati Angels under Dante Harlan, which is one of the best AAU programs for women in the nation. In college, she has been a mainstay in the Rambler lineup, starting 20 games in the 31 appearances in the 2018 and 2019 season. She was MVP. She was my Missouri Valley Conference All-Freshman team. She averaged 6.7 points and 5.8 rebounds per game, and shot almost 50% from the field. She reached double digits in 10 games and ranked second on the team in block shots, recording 26 rejections. She scored 14 points and grabbed 9 rebounds in her second collegiate game against Detroit Mercy. She finished with 17 points in a home win against Chicago State and added 11 points and 6 rebounds in a win over Valparaiso to open the Missouri Valley Conference play. She fell just shy of double digits versus Indiana State, contributing 10 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 blocks. She turned in a strong all-around performance in a win against Illinois State, finishing the night with 13 points, 7 rebounds, and a season-high 5 assists and 2 blocks. She posted her first career double-double just a couple of days later against Bradley, finishing up with 18 points and 11 rebounds, both being season highs. She chipped in 10 points in a win over Evansville to open up the Missouri Valley Conference tournament. Again, this young lady is not just an outstanding student. She's not just an outstanding player. She's also an outstanding person. She comes from good stock, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I would like to introduce you and welcome you to the show, Miss Allison Day. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you for that introduction.
Well, these are types of things that I always tell kids all the time. If you want to know something about somebody, just Google them, and it'll tell you where they've been. But it has to be post-2005 probably. Anything prior to that, you probably can't find.
Probably not much stats there.
How's the quarantine life treating you?
I'm really just enjoying it. Being back home with my family, out in the country, away from the city for a little bit. So it hasn't been too bad, just definitely a little different than what I'd normally be doing right now.
I saw you and your brother last week cooked some steaks and some shrimp or something for your parents. You guys must have really been bored.
Yeah, we both enjoy to cook, especially when we get to enjoy it after. So
something that our listeners may not know is that you have an older brother that just completed his college career. Marcus Day. He was at Mount Union. They were on track to compete for a national championship according to the standings and according to their record. And Mother Corona got a hold of the season, and that was a huge letdown for them not being able to finish. He wrote an absolute brilliant letter that he posted on Facebook that really touched me, being a basketball fan and a basketball lover. But what impact did Marcus have on you in terms of your development growing up?
Well, he definitely had a huge impact. I'm sure he's happy to know that he was one of the first topics to be discussed on here. But definitely playing basketball in the driveway, and if I saw him out there shooting, I was like, well, if he's shooting, then I definitely need to be out there working too. And I mean, he's really just continued to work hard, especially he tore his ACL in the past summer, and he's really worked to come back from that. And even now he's out on the driveway shooting, getting shots up, even though his season was cut short.
Your dad is a basketball guy. That's really how I know him. He's always around Eastern basketball when I was growing up. He was I always knew him. The people, him and Coach Buechler and some guys would play in leagues and stuff, and I'd be like, "You mean the tall, unorthodox guy?" He played and was very successful. Like I say, I remember him when I was younger. How much of an impact did he have on your career, and did he kind of push you, or did he kind of settle in and let you find your way?
I think as I've gotten older, he's let me find my way a little bit. Still pushing me to try and be my best. He was my coach through elementary and middle school. Then he let Coach Pickerel take the reins in high school. His whole family, this is the fourth generation of having college athletes. My great grandma was at Maryville in Tennessee. And so, I mean, really basketball has just been in the family, and that's how I got introduced to it. So if it wasn't for him playing basketball, I don't know what I would be doing.
Yeah. Naturally, you've been playing basketball a long time. You spoke on, being the fourth generation of college athletes, you and Marcus, but your interest early on started with something, and you mentioned that it was your dad. When did you realize, though, that your interest had become a passion?
I would say, I grew up going to the gym with my dad, playing, or he would play Rob Buechler before school on Wednesday mornings. And, just growing up in the basketball family, it's always been there. But I don't think I really realized until like middle school or high school that there's something that I'd want to do in college and really work for and strive for.
You were part of really good Eastern teams, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. This is kind of a sequel because we talked to the first wave of Eastern female greats last night when we got a chance to talk to Micah Harvey, and she was kind of telling us about building that foundation at Eastern and like how important it was to compete and to be successful. And they established the program, and then it just kind of filtered through year after year after year after year after year, the success. Walk us through your high school days and entering as a freshman. Did you have any individual goals that you wanted to achieve, or was it just more of, continuing to do what you loved?
I think coming up, my basketball team had always been good, competitive, along with, North Adams and Peebles. We really competed with them. So we were always kind of like a winner team. So my 8th grade year, the high school team had only won 2 games. I got up there and I was like, well, I don't want to lose.
Right.
I just, I'm used to winning. I don't want it to stop now. And I really think that was one thing that I focused on and wanted to do, was to eventually turn the program back to where it used to be and go back to the powerhouse. Really one goal I had as a freshman was to start, because I thought I was talented enough to, but at the end of the day, when it came game time, I was really just trying to play the game and be a playmaker and help my team score and win.
So you had the privilege of playing for Coach Kevin Pickerel, Coach Pick, Coach Kev. He goes by a lot of different names. he is a very, very, very knowledgeable and hardworking coach. And he has a background in boys basketball. That's where he came from. And I think he kind of sensed that Rob wasn't going anywhere in terms of anytime soon. And even though he was next in line, he kind of maybe felt like that wasn't going to come soon enough for him. And this is just all my speculation, but he jumped to the girls' side. And it was a decision that has been very beneficial to him, but most importantly, it's been beneficial to the Eastern girls basketball program. You know, how much of a blessing was that experience getting to play for Coach Pick?
Well, I think he's helped me a lot, not just with being, helping those skills and practice and stuff, but the way he runs the program has really helped me for the college coaching experience, because I still struggle with taking the yelling and things like that, but with dealing with having to understand what he's trying to say, not how he's saying it, and knowing that he wants the best for you at the end of the day. I mean, he really just always cared about the team and cared about the players, and that's how he ran the program. It was great.
That's something that needs to be understood. And if anybody missed it, as you said it, players and kids spend so much time worrying about how their coach says something and not enough time worrying about what they're saying. And I think that is, as a coach, that's one of the things that you're doing the right thing and you're moving in the right direction when you've got a group of individuals, even, especially high school kids, that understand that it's about the message. It's not about how it's delivered, and so I think that was a good point that you made. Again, Coach Pick coached boys. He's very fiery. Switched over to the girls. Let's talk about his passion for the game and how much did he push you guys to reach your maximum potential, and how much did he make you understand that we have to continue to work and continue to get better as a team, individually, as a whole, and that to get you guys to buy in that, a whole is only as good as the sum of its parts. How was he able to do that?
Well, I think Coach Pick really always encouraged all of us to put work in on our own time, which really helped the team as a whole. He scheduled a lot of summer shoot-arounds. As much as we could get in the gym that OHSA would allow us, we were in there. And he really just provided an environment where just a friend that you could talk to, or a coach. He could be both. He could be a coach on the court and a friend outside of that. But he definitely pushed me to be more assertive. I know my junior year, he was, I love that you pass the ball, but you can score too, just trying to push me to be a better player for the future.
You were, and I talked to Micah about this last night, you were surrounded by talented players. Coach Pick's daughter being one of them, and Alexa Pennington being one of them. And there's some really good players at Eastern. And it's all a backdraft to the youth program and how it's ran and how much of an influence the high school coaches have in it, and the fact that the high school kids participate in it and teach what they've learned. I mean, you were the same kid in those camps as a high school kid working those camps and those clinics. So when you come up in that situation, do you feel pressure to win and be successful at Eastern, because that's the expectation all the time?
I definitely think there's an expectation. I remember going to basketball camps every summer, no matter what. It was really weird my freshman year being on the other side of things. So I would say there's an expectation, and just you got to put work in and do your job, and the goal all the time is to win. That's what Eastern used to be about, at least for me.
Right. You had a very successful high school career, made it to the state tournament. How bad was the sting of not being able to bring Eastern's first state championship, being that close?
Yeah, that was definitely a wild ride. Having to beat Lynchburg for the third time, and then going into just places I never even thought. I mean, Coach Pick had already foreseen what we could do, but I never really thought that I would be going to the state tournament after watching it in elementary school as a middle school team and stuff. Going up there, we would always watch the girls' state tournament, and so it was something we'd always thought about, but never thought like we would actually get the chance to play on that floor.
Mm-hmm.
So just being so close to something you never imagined, I mean, it hurt. It definitely stung really bad. And, you know, one of our assistant coaches that year, they said there's only one team at the end of the year that doesn't lose their last game. Mm-hmm. And that was something we really strived for because we wanted to be the team that won their last game.
Right.
So that was definitely tough.
That's an interesting approach. In high school girls basketball, it's very rare to see a team with two very skilled post players. And Eastern, the last few years, had two really good players that were dominant in the post. However, and that being you and Alexa Pennington, however, both of you were very skilled and, you know, could do some stuff off the bounce and had a decent mid-range game. How nice was it playing with someone that could take away some of the workload in the paint? And how nice was it getting a chance to step away from the basket some and be able to express yourself, so to speak, on the court?
Well, I think that team was really fun. We all had our roles, and, you know, Alexa came in from West Union, and she was a post player, but she'll tell you she really just liked to shoot threes, which helped spread the court for us. It allowed me, you know, she could be inside and allowed me to, you know, work on some other skills and try some new things. I mean, we had Whitney Bratton who could score, Michaela Ferris could score, Jensen, Morgan. I mean, there was just a lot of people that you could put in and they would do their jobs, which really helped us to be successful and get to the Final Four.
You know, something I know a lot of kids, you know, over where I'm at Felicity, a lot of kids have aspirations of like being a Felicity Cardinal. Like it's important to them and that's what they want. Now that they see that the culture is changing and that type of thing. And you see it at Eastern and you see it at Ripley and you see it at North Adams and you see it at most of the schools around here that don't have football. Like as a kid, you grow up, you want to be part of that. Something I talked to Micah last night about was, you know, following Eastern basketball and not just the girls program, but also the boys program. And how special was it being able to be a part of that?
Well, it's definitely an honor. I think the biggest thing about Eastern basketball or basketball out here in general when you don't have football is just like that's what you do on Friday nights. That's what you do on Thursdays. You go to the girls' game, then you go to the boys' game the next night. And the best thing that I remember is seeing those stands full of people there just to watch your team because they've been doing it since their kids graduated or since they graduated from the same school. And that was really like probably the worst part about going to college. One of them was that those stands just aren't as full as they are in high school.
I mean, Eastern basketball, boys and girls, it's a movement. You know, it really is. And that movement has everything to do with the amount of longevity that they've been able to get out of the people that they have put in place to lead the programs. Coach Jerry Lewis left Western Brown and was at Eastern for quite some time. And he brought Rob along at an early age. And then Rob spent 10, 12, 15 years as a JV coach and then became the head coach. He's working on year 25 or 26. Pitt graduated and Rob brought him on. And you know, he let him work with him for 10, 12, 15 years. And all the while, Coach Burrows was an assistant for Coach Kaiser. And as soon as Coach Kaiser left, Coach Burrows took over. And as soon as they were done, Pick stepped in. And they've never gotten away from the Eastern Brown Warrior way, if that makes any sense. Like there's a way. And even though the boys and girls programs are built on different philosophies, they're all built around the same principles. And that is character building, program building, and successful seasons. And that's what they're able to provide. Let's talk for a minute about your injury that you suffered. How devastating was that to you? And I tried to look it up and find it. I couldn't find exactly when it was. What year was that?
It was AAU after my junior year.
Gotcha.
It was one of the first tournaments. I actually was playing pretty well, and my dad was there for my first AAU tournament, and went down, and first thing was just, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening to me. I've trained all my life to prevent injuries like this with my dad. He's a chiropractor.
Yeah.
He works with sport training. So preventing injuries has definitely been a big thing in high school before I even got to college. So, I mean, after I got the results, I called Coach Kate at Loyola because I'd already committed there, and I was very concerned about my scholarship because there are some players that could lose theirs, and she reassured me that it was still going to be there. My spot was still going to be there. We just needed to focus on getting better, which involved me sitting out my senior year and not getting those 1,000 points and not, being successful with my teammates, my friends, my family. So it was definitely tough. I would say it has helped me with my work ethic now, and just having to get in the gym and work out and shoot, just grow my skill level even more.
Your dad was able to, and this is just an interesting, non-relevant tidbit, but when I was injured a couple of times in high school with like nothing major, but he was always able to give me the recipe to be on the floor at 85 to 100% every Tuesday and every Tuesday and Friday night. And besides knucklehead reasons why I would have to miss a game, I never missed a game due to injury. And a lot of that had to do with him. Now I did miss a couple games, knucklehead mistakes, but a lot of that was to do with him. Let's fast forward. You sign a letter of intent to attend Loyola University of Chicago, a Missouri Valley Conference institution. How hard was the transition from an educational standpoint? Because let's just face it, mom and dad aren't there to tell you need your work done. And although there are study tables and programs put in place to keep you successful, you are on your own. And so how difficult was that transition from an educational standpoint?
Well, I think, the academic workload was just way different than a rural education. Eastern is one of the top, or at least was when I was there, one of the top educational schools like in the county and out here. But Loyola's is pretty high ranked for their academics, and the workload was substantially more. There wasn't necessarily a lot of homework, but you would have to study way more for tests and quizzes and exams than I ever did in high school. So I think just time management and still trying to put in your basketball work was really tough.
Let's talk about the transition from a basketball standpoint.
Well, I think everybody will tell you that the college pace is just so different from high school. And one big thing for me was, I was probably the tallest, or one of the tallest, with Avery Harper in my class in the league. And I'm one of the shortest post players in the conference now. So the size is definitely different. You're training every day. People are stronger, they're bigger, they're more skilled. So it was definitely a transition there and getting used to the competition level.
Something that you often run into being from rural America is the fact of being, the need or having to prove your worth. Like, you ask people where you're from, you say Eastern Brown, they don't know where it's at. And you don't say you're from Chicago or from Milwaukee or from Detroit or one of the schools where maybe some of your teammates are from, and instantly, because you didn't play in the Detroit Public School League, you don't have go. Did you run into any of that, or is that just a boys basketball thing, more or less?
I don't really think I ran into that too much. Definitely when I was being recruited, people would say, well, what school did you go to? Where's that? Who do you play? I'm just like, you don't know. You don't know where I'm from. It's okay. Right. I definitely think when I got there, some people thought I was a little bit of a country bumpkin. They were wondering what I was going to be able to do. But in the end, I mean, I've taught my teammates so much about the country life and farming and what it's like that, you know, I've just earned my spot, I think, and we've all learned a little bit about the city. I've learned about the city, and they've learned about the farm socially. So
something that I've always found interesting was I took some of my teammates from one of my teammates from Lima, one of my teammates from Columbus. They came to Ripley to stay with me and a friend for the Scotty Morgan Memorial 3-on-3 tournament. And they, the whole way, were like, what, y'all ride horse and buggies out there? Y'all ride horse and buggies? And I'm like, nah, we got cars, man. I was like, I've never seen anybody on a horse on the road, you know, like I've never seen that.
I think we just go to outhouses. We don't have a bathroom in the house.
But here we are. And the whole way I'm like, no, man, like people don't ride horses on the road. People don't ride horse and buggies. People drive cars, whatever. So as soon as we get to Ripley, we cross the Eagle Creek Bridge and we're approaching into town. Right as we get to the new high school, these two people are coming off of Schofield Road on horses.
How convenient.
And I was just like, this cannot be happening. Like, and they were like, oh, look, I told you. And so that was a fun story and a fun experience because I still talk to, when I talk to them today, I'm just like, man, you remember we pulled into Ripley, there's people wearing horses. That was the first time for both of us. And they're like, yeah, right, whatever. So let's talk about your freshman year, your knee injury. You know, did you still favor it? How gradual was the process into getting back into it? And you know, how comfortable were you at first?
Well, I actually went to Loyola in the summer, so like June 2nd before my freshman year. I went there early before any of the rest of the freshmen got there, and I was just there with about 4 other teammates just to be sure my knee would be ready once fall came and preseason came. So not only did I do a lot of rehab with my dad here, but when I got there, I continued to do some more rehab and just making sure that it was stable enough to go live. And I sat out for probably a couple of weeks before they wanted me to do full contact. But then, I mean, it really didn't bother me much, which I'm very thankful for.
As a freshman, you started 20 games and were a huge contributor for your team. How was that experience, and did it help build your confidence toward knowing that you were healthy and toward knowing that you could play at this level?
I would definitely say freshman year was a learning experience. I mean, even this year was a learning experience. But one of my teammates actually got hurt, which allowed me to move up into the starting lineup, which definitely gave me a lot of experience to realize what I could do. But it also made me realize how much I still needed to work and get better to compete with the top-notch players in my conference.
Now, had your team qualified for the conference tournament this season before all this happened? Were you in game? I talked to Shalon Pillow on the first night of the series, and she told me they were coming out of the locker room for their second round or first round conference tournament game, and they told them to go back to the locker room and that the conference tournament was postponed, which ultimately didn't happen. How did it play out for your team?
So we don't have to qualify. Everybody is in. We ended up being the 7th seed, which was not where we wanted to be. We lost a couple of games we should have won, could have won. So our rank got dropped down, and we had to play the game on Thursday. And we did our walkthrough and our shoot around, and then we got back after pregame meal. We saw all the other teams packing up their bus, and Coach Kate pulled us into the hotel room and said, you know, it was canceled, which we'd already seen the Big East and all of the bigger conferences canceled. So we were just kind of waiting for it to be our turn to go back home before we got to play.
Right. That's a shame that it played out that way. I want to talk about your brother just briefly. He was on the number 1 Division III team in the country at Mount Union. He was a role player at best, and he has no qualms or quarrels about that. in his post, in his letter that he wrote to basketball, he scored 2 points in his whole career. And he speaks of the experience of being part of that basketball program like it was the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. Knowing that they were having such a good season and knowing that, they were picked, favored, one of the top 3 or 4 teams favored to win the D3 national championship. Tell me what the phone call was like that when you finally ultimately ended up talking to him to exchange that his season was canceled and your season was canceled. And, naturally you're the 7 seed going into your conference tournament. They're going to be a 1 seed in one of the regions in their national tournament. What was that conversation like?
Well, I mean, I think him being out with his ACL, both of us have experienced that. And so we know what we can do for our teammates, whether it's on or off the court. So I think that's one thing that's helped him to be so involved in the team that was so good this year. Was if somebody needed him to help, he was there ready to do it. And so I think that was really just a big bummer when they didn't get the chance to prove themselves and prove their ranking. He was, so uphill. They were on such a high, and then for it to just suddenly stop like that, definitely a big bummer. I mean, he also planned on throwing a javelin in the spring, so that got cut short. He's hoping he can go back next season and throw, but it's just so crazy the sudden stop. And, you might not even see some of those teammates again. You never know where life will take you. So,
and a lot of it, I talked to one of my past guests, Tyler Lippert, who he was part of my Small Town Sports Big City Dream series, and he plays golf at Eastern Kentucky. And he was explaining to me, like, he has the option to go back and play next spring, but financially it's not going to make any sense because he's graduating. And so that's another issue that everyone has to take into consideration when thinking about whether they're going to pursue that extra year of eligibility for spring sports. Something, this series, She Got Game, Divas of the Hardwood. I tried to pick some of the better players that I know of here locally. And actually I didn't know where you were at. I didn't know where you were at. And I kind of lost track of you. And Gage Boone reached out to me and was like, "You need my girl Allison Day on this series, man." So I was like, I'd love to talk to her. I don't know where she's at. I don't know how to get a hold of her. Like, I wouldn't know, I tried to look for your dad on Facebook and stuff, and 2 other Mark Days popped up. I don't know if he's on there. And then I was going to message your brother, and I was like, no, he'll think that's weird. So I was just like, I'm just not going to worry about it. But what ended up happening was Gage reached out to me and was like, "You need to get my girl Allison Day on this series, man." And I knew that you were a stud, during that time, but I just didn't know you personally, And so it's been a good opportunity to talk to you. If you can make a suggestion to the powers that be to help grow the women's game or women's sports in general, what would that suggestion be? What would you recommend?
I really think that people just need to go and get out and watch more, grow some inspiration, see that there is talent out there on the other side. It's not just guys who can play basketball. It is competitive. I understand maybe the game's a little slower in high school, but I mean, I was up in Chicago. We went to lots of Chicago Sky games, and there's just a lack of people, even in a big city like Chicago, for there to be such a lack of attendance. I really think that if, kids, whether it's girls or boys, just taking them to games and letting them see the talent and really growing some inspiration for people to put in work and just go see a game. Go see if you like it. You can't say you don't like it if you've never tried it. So I think that's the big thing. Just try it out.
Personally, I think that the women's game needs to be revamped and the rules need changed. And I think they need to force the women's game to speed up. So, I don't know how you go about doing it, but like in terms of forcing teams to press more often, taking 5 more seconds off the shot clock. And I know that seems like a far stretch because when you're out there playing and you've got the ball at the end of the shot clock, you're like, oh, hell, I got to shoot it, But, like, there are some measures that I think that the women's game could take to maybe elevate the viewing pleasure in terms of, forcing teams to press during certain points of the games. Like, everything is a business. Unfortunately, everything is a business. And women's basketball is evolving, and it's much better than it used to be, but it still has a little ways to go. But when I was a kid, the only women's teams that you ever heard about was Tennessee or Louisiana Tech or Texas Tech or UConn. And now, you've got a lot of, 15, 20 teams in the country that all fluctuate from one to 15 or 20. And then you got another 8 or 10 teams that fluctuate in and out of the top 25. So the game is really changing and it is really becoming better. I just feel like there are still some things that they could do past the, I think that girls basketball, and I think it needs to happen in boys as well, but high school needs a shot clock. That's another thing that I think needs to happen. I think high school needs a shot clock to be able to bring the ball up the court and hold the ball 3 or 4 minutes. What that does is it allows coaches to have a philosophy or a brand of basketball that's built around never having any talent. And I'm a guy that is like, let's develop some talent, And so there's different things that I think needs to help. And I think the women's game, Billie Jean King with tennis and what she did with starting the Women's Tennis Association, and Ann Myers, what she did in terms of being the first woman ever drafted by an NBA team and playing for an NBA team. Like, we are light years away from where we were, 60 years ago in terms of women's sports, but there still is a ways to go. But people like you are important in that because you are a liaison to the game because of your passion and your love. For our younger listeners, how important is AAU and how important is it to find a team that fits your needs and not just the high-profile teams?
Well, I was lucky enough to receive offers and only have been playing AAU for a year and a half. I mean, I was planning on playing for 2 years, and then I tore my ACL. So I do think it is important to find a team to get your name up, but I don't necessarily think you got to do it when you're in 5th grade. Mm-hmm. I think you can focus on multiple sports before, just basketball all the time. It also keeps it more fun that you're not doing it every single day when you're growing up, and it's supposed to be fun then. I mean, I definitely think playing for the Cincinnati Angels and the players I got to play with, Braxton Miller, who's at Ohio State, Alexa Chrisman, she's at Rice. It definitely drew college coaches to come and watch me. So that did help. I would say that, you don't really have to be the powerhouse on the team. Like, you don't have to be the best skilled, because if there is somebody that's better skilled, that'll still draw coaches to your games to see everybody. And if you're playing and you're doing your best, then they'll see that. They'll see the hustle and the work, and you never know what the opportunity could become.
And so, one last question. What is your message to a little girl out there that has a passion for sports and wanting to pursue a dream of playing, of playing next level athletics and maybe even potentially playing at the pro level? What is your message to all those little girls out there?
I just really think just to keep going and not give up on it, just because, I was picked last in elementary school with the boys at recess. Just because you get doubted doesn't mean that you can't work your way up. I think, like I mentioned earlier, it's important to play multiple sports and not to just focus on one, because that really helps to build different skills and helps athletes evolve. But, if you want it, I think you can do it. I've grown as an athlete and a basketball player in college. I definitely didn't know where I would be as a sophomore, but I I don't know that I thought I would average 10 points a game. Don't know that I thought that I would be starting most of the games in the season. But if you put the work in, I mean, and have fun with it. I think that's the biggest thing is you got to find a way to still have fun with it. And if you are having fun with it and you're having a passion, then, you can do anything really.
Allison, thank you for being with us. Good luck with all your future endeavors. Tell your dad I said hello. It's a privilege to have you on the show. Glad I got a chance to catch up with you. I've heard the name a lot, but didn't know who I was listening to or listening about. And I will definitely be following your Loyola University of Chicago maturation the rest of the way. Stay healthy, stay safe, love on your family while you can, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think it's a great thing that you're doing, and hopefully when all this is over, you can come catch a game in Chicago.
I'll bring my family, and we'll do it.
Sounds awesome.
See ya.
See ya, bye.
So that was Allison Day, Loyola University of Chicago. Forward, very good player. Comes from basketball stock. Brother Marcus played at Mount Union. They were number 1 in the country. Father Mark played and was very good during his time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Tomorrow, Jill Benintendi turned down the interview. Kelly Benintendi. So tomorrow, Kelly Benintendi will be with us. So join tomorrow at 6 o'clock, Sunday at 6 o'clock. Georgetown High School legendary Brown County girls basketball player, Kelly Benintendi, one of the best to ever do it. She'll be right here on the show tomorrow, 6 p.m. I'm out.